friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. Hello, everyone. You are listening to the MC Lars podcast. This is episode 107. It is Monday, October 19th, 2020. And you know what that means? Halloween is just around the corner. Now, I know a lot of you in the past maybe spent your Halloweens going trick-or-treating with your kids, or going to crazy parties, or going to see ICP at Hallowicked in Detroit. That's probably not going to happen this year, unless there's a vaccine the next week. So I want y'all to check out the Four-Eyed Horseman stream, and you can get tickets at tinyurl.com/Four-Eyed Halloween. There's a really cool Halloween shirt. There's different merch bundles, different, you get custom art, different VIP ticket levels. And our guest on the show is none other than Richie Branson, both on the Halloween show and today's podcast, Holler. Also, this Saturday, check out the Shack News Stimulus games at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. We play different tournaments, different games. We played Rocket League before. We played the Power Rangers fighting game. I think we're playing a new Star Wars game this weekend. So check that out. I haven't been doing my Twitch streams as much these days because I want to put more focus on the Shack News Stimulus Twitch games because it's more fun to do an all-day tournament with all our Nerdcore friends. And so if you want to watch me gaming on Twitch, that's where every month or so, check us out on the Shack News Twitch stream, which has been super, super fun. So this week's episode is brought to you by the Patreon Larsens. If you didn't know, if you sign up at patreon.com/MCLars, not only do you get my entire back catalog, you also get 100 plus songs of mine you maybe haven't heard, including songs about all the movies from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And right now I'm doing all the Star Wars movies, video games, and TV shows in chronological order. We have the Clone Wars coming up, so check that out. It's been super fun working on these. So if you sign up, patreon.com/MCLars, you will catch the flavor, essays, behind-the-scenes videos, art, ringtones, acapellas, haikus. I do a haiku for everyone, and then there's a downloadable video. So it's pretty fresh. But anyway, shout out to the old school Larsens. That's what I call my awesome supporters who make this podcast possible. The old ones, Prague Gator, James Collins, and Sam Casely. And shout out to the new ones, Joel Barnett, Kenneth White, and John Manis. Y'all keep this ship going. And it's been hard with the pandemic, not being able to tour. But it's also been, it's been really heartening to have all this support from y'all. You keep streaming my stuff, you keep supporting on Patreon, you keep downloading the podcast. It's just been, it's been really encouraging. I also want to shout out my in-laws, Barbara and John, for being so kind to us during the pandemic. And Nana, aka Barbara, takes really good care of our son Atlas sometimes in the afternoons. Well, actually every day in the afternoons, so I can do things like the podcast and the Patreon. So shout out to you, Barbara. I know you listen to the podcast sometimes. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. It's time for this week's Letter to Atlas. And if you want to call in, there's a Google Voice number, and I'll play it on the podcast, and then we're going to play these messages for our son. So if you ever want to just wish him good luck and welcome to the world, he's 6 months now, and he's doing really, really well. So the phone number is 510-463-4237. Again, 510-463-4237 if you want to leave a letter to Atlas. This week's message is from my homie Steve, who was one of the first interns for my label back 10 years ago. He helped us out on Warped Tour for a bit on our first Warped Tour, and he's always been a great dude. He called and left a message. So this is this week's Letter to Atlas. Is he sleeping? Is he pooping? Just checking in. How's a little boy doing? These are some messages that you left, wishing our little baby boy the best. Now it's time for Letters to Atlas.
Please leave a message after the tone.
Hi, this message is for Atlas. Hi, my name is Steve. I met your father, Andrew, or MC Lars, many years ago, first through the internet, and then worked for him for a little bit being an intern, sending out posters to different concert venues and what have you. But I just wanted to say it's wonderful that you're here in the world, and you've got two wonderful parents. I've known Lars, like I said, for many, many years, and I've met your mother once or twice, and she's very, very kind, and a perfect match for your father as well. But I'm excited to hear more about you, and I hope you live up to everything that is in your potential. That's all I got. All right. Bye.
Thanks, Steve. You're a good man. If any of you have you ever been to one of my shows and you see the sign I have up for credit cards, Steve designed that. And we used the same design he made like 10 years ago. And that's a little piece of Steve's legacy that joins us on all our nerdy music tours. So thank you, Steve, our Pittsburgh homie. Okay. So Richie Branson, this episode is awesome because Richie is kind of like he's a culture hacker. He designs games and makes memes. Not only does he do music, and we've collaborated a few times, he makes this amazing contribution to culture by like guessing what's at the intersection of culture and then doing like a hip hop spin or a viral meme spin or an internet twist. Like we talk about how in a way, the way he remixes culture is in the same tradition as the way Kool Herc remixed James Brown back in the day. The way you take culture, put your spin on it, so to speak, and then amplify your message. And so it's really cool hearing him talk about his process and his artistic approach, his new record. We hear a song from his new record. He talks about fatherhood. He talks about surviving cancer. He talks about the time he was on tour with MC Chris and a fan said something not nice about him on Twitter. Chris read the piece on Twitter and kicked the fan out of the show. So yeah, that we get into that, and he gives his perspective of what it was like being on stage when all that went down. And some of you might be like, Lars, what are you talking about? We get into it. So this is my interview with Richie Branson. It's a great interview. It's a long interview, but it's every minute of it was super interesting. So let's get into it. Richie Branson on the MC Lars podcast. Hello, everyone. This is a very special episode. Well, every episode's special, but this man I wanted to talk to for a minute. Finally, we made it happen. Richie Branson, ladies and gentlemen. Woo! What's up, Richie?
Hey, how's it going?
We've been playing the Shaq News stimulus games. That's when I've seen you most recently. Is that what it's called? Shaq News, right?
Shaq News stimulus games. Yeah, my heart breaks every time I think about this. It's like PTSD for me.
I don't know if you noticed, I always lose very quickly.
Yeah.
My thing is I start distracting people. I start asking random trivia while we're playing.
Yeah.
And then no one pays attention to my skills or lack therefore of.
It works, though. You become like the MC as opposed to, it's like you drive the conversation that happens while everything else is going on. It's beautiful. If you guys aren't watching the Shaq News stimulus games, you guys should definitely tune into Twitch and Twitch TV/Shaq News and watch. It's really entertaining.
Good to give them a proper shout out. And they actually, it's called stimulus games because they're like, they know a lot of us are not on tour or whatever. So they pay us to play these tournaments and it's like so cool. Like they've invited us to do it. And it's like it's really inclusive, like indicative thing of the scene of like nerdcore. There's just a whole bunch of people who have our backs and there's a great community and it's grown. And you're part of that, Richie.
Oh yeah.
I think that's tight.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a humbling experience to just be able to, get together like this. I know it's we live in unprecedented times right now, so it's good to have that kind of escape because it's depressing, man. It's a depressing age.
It's depressing, and it's like also interesting that I met you. We met at what, Nerdapalooza or Orlando Nerdfest?
Yep.
Somewhere in Orlando, I feel like was when I met you.
It's definitely some Orlando-ish. I think it was either the last Nerdapalooza, which sounds about right, because I was geeking out meeting everybody. That was my first time really meeting like a lot of the nerdcore proper at that time, and it was good to be there. I performed at the after party, but it was still cool. It was tight.
Yeah. That's first I saw you and Megaran doing it at that Geek Easy, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So it must have been 2013 or 14.
13 sounds about right.
So and then you were on the road a lot and you tour with Chris, MC Chris, and amongst other people. Mm-hmm. And the reason I mentioned this is because you've been able to build this whole career around like influencing culture, remixing culture, telling stories, like bringing the brands you love together with other things. And so touring for you is, I feel like it's something you do when you want to, if it's fun and if it's right, because it's not, you're not one of those artists who makes his living from the road. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right. It's, I think, in my case, yeah, it's I've toured, I think only 3 times. I toured with Chris, and I toured twice, no, 3 times with Rand. I toured, and Rand's just such an awesome dude to be on the road with. He's dope. Chris is dope too. Like I had a good time. Chris, that was a tour for the history book. So
How did you get hooked up with Chris Ward in the first place? Like, how did that happen?
it was crazy. It was like right when Bring Back Toonami, I put out this song called Bring Back Toonami. I was doing these weekly anime raps at the time. This was back in 2012. This was a long time ago.
Wow.
And I'd only been doing this stuff for I started my quote unquote nerdcore journey January of 2012 with the Cold Republic. And then after that, I started doing, I did a Gundam EP. And then I just started I sort of like found my lane as far as just rapping influenced by anime. And then I dropped this song called Bring Back Toonami, and Adult Swim actually picked it up. And then after that, Chris had reached out and he was like, hey man, like it's kind of good timing. I'm about to go on tour, and a lot of people, it'd really be cool to see if you wanted to go on the road. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had a day job, and I was like, I don't know,
Wow.
but I took a lot of time to think about it, and I was like, like going on tour, hell yeah. So I told my job I was quitting. And they're like, no, don't quit. Just go do what you have to do and come back. And I was like, oh, even better, bet. So, ended up going on tour with MC Chris, first ever tour. And it was great. He was very like, it's funny because it was my first tour and he knew it. And like, he was always like, yo, Richie, you good? You good? Like he was, and I think that probably played into how everything sort of panned out. I think a lot of it was him knowing it was my first tour, and him wanting to be as available as he could to making sure that I wasn't like stressed or worried or feeling any sort of angst. If it was, it was as comfortable as a first tour as it could have been, thanks to him. He made everything seem very easy, and I did my thing. I'm one of those people that I listen. If you tell me like, hey, this is what needs to happen for things to go smoothly, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And I play my position.
Let's talk about what happened with the tweet, because I'm sure some of the listeners know about the story, but I bet some of the other listeners might not.
I was on stage, man. From my point of view, I was on stage. I was killing it.
What city?
Philadelphia at Union. Was it Union Station? I think is the name of the venue.
Yeah, Union Transfer, right?
Union Transfer. Yes, I'll never forget. That was a nice venue too. It was a hell of a venue. So I'm on stage. I'm doing my thing. I'm rapping. I'm about halfway into my set. And all of a sudden, like, it's funny because I was like, the crowd was into it. But then as I'm like ending a song or as I'm like coming at the close of a song, I hear like this big crowd pop. And I'm like, damn, I know they didn't like the song that much. Damn. And then I look behind me and it's Chris. And I was like, oh, shit. Yeah, that makes sense. And he's like,
they're like, collab. They're
yeah.
like, oh, you guys have a song together.
And he's like, y'all give it up for the greatest rapper, Richie Branson. The crowd was all into it. Yeah, it was no taking of mics or anything. He just kind of popped up. And I was just kind of like, wow, this is interesting. Like, it was unexpected. And then he was asking about, is there a Mike Taylor in the crowd? Mike Taylor, who's Mike Taylor? And I bet Mike was like, oh shit, I must have won something. I'm the man right now. Because he was like, me. I'll never forget. It's a big tall guy.
He ran in, he was in the lobby, right? As far as from what I've read.
Yeah. He was somewhere. So, he comes in and Chris is like, yeah, what's up, Mike? Yeah, I want you to find the nearest member of security and tell him to get to escort you the fuck out. And I was like, whoa. He's like, that's what you get for talking shit about my openers. And like immediately in my head, I was like, he must have said something egregious. Like, I thought it was going to be something just so intolerable or just terrible. But either way, I was like, everybody. But it's crazy because the entire crowd was like, yeah, boo, get the fuck out, Mike, ha.
Was it clear that it was on Twitter?
I think he said talking shit on Twitter about my openers because I knew to go look on Twitter after my set. So, yeah, but it was like, the entire crowd was like, and that's what people don't realize. Nobody in the crowd was like, oh, what are you doing kicking him out? Like, nobody was apologetic or like empathetic for him at the time. It was the entire crowd was like, yeah, get the hell out. So Yeah, that happened, and then I continued with the show. I think I made Mike
Right.
Taylor a punchline in the next song. It was all fun to me. Like it was at that point, it was just an interesting turn of events that kind of made the show better in a weird way. It definitely made it better. Afterwards, MC Chris was like, "Yeah, man, I just really was riding with you, man. Like this guy was talking trash about you, and I don't need that energy. I work hard to put my openers in a good position, and I don't want that kind of negativity in my show." And I was like, "That makes sense." And I'm still under the presumption that this was like some crazy, super wild, like I thought it was going to be some cuss words, maybe an N word, something. I thought it was something bad. But I go and I think was I with Rand? No, I had not met Rand yet, but I was with my manager, Kevin. Shout out Kevin. We were looking on Twitter and we find a tweet and it was like, "Dear artist, dear nerd rapper opening up for MC Chris, you're not good enough to pander to me. Better luck next time." It was incredibly douchey. In hindsight, like it did make me question, like, what did you mean by pander? Like, you came to see a band that is named after a Nintendo accessory that plays cover songs about, Nintendo games, and then you come to see somebody who raps about Star Wars. And it's like, how could you not want to be pandered to? But okay, whatever. That aside, it sort of made me, and through my life, I've been told I don't belong in nerd spaces sometimes, and those motivations have sometimes been very clear to me. Like, yeah, you're not this enough to be nerdy, or you're not that enough. So it's sort of like made me feel that way.
Gatekeeping,
But
right?
exactly, it was a gatekeeping
Right.
type of thing. And
Yeah.
would I have, been upset by reading it? Not to that degree, but I understand why Chris did it. A lot of people kind of gave him a lot of hell for it, but I look at it like he knew it was my first tour. I was just this young, impressionable rapper trying to figure shit out, and he did what he thought was best for me. And so, was it the best outcome? No, because the next day we woke up and this shit was all over the internet. I could not believe the shit. It was crazy. It was.
Ugh.
Oh, it was brutal. And I'm like, what the hell? It turns out the dude was a blogger and he wrote this long ass Reddit page and that shit blew the fuck up. I could not believe it.
I know.
So by the next night, this shit's on MTV. It's everywhere. And I'm just like, my email is flooded. This is when it got. I think it wasn't the event that was the bad part. It was the people's responses to it. It was a lot of racism. I just say that. I have
Really?
hundreds of emails with N-word this, N-word that. Yeah, it was bad. And the funny thing is, I responded to every single thing that was thrown my way. That was the worst mistake. I learned the hard way. Don't look at the comments. Don't read the emails.
Where did the racism come from? I know people can be horrible and
Yeah.
disgusting, but what could justify an email like that?
Probably trolls. It was emails, it was DMs, it was any way that people could get to me in a way that was either anonymous or, in a way where they weren't getting banned from Reddit. Because nobody on Reddit was being obviously racist, but the Reddit people were like, "You should leave the tour," this is how I'm paying my bills right now. Like, what are you talking about? Like, if your boss at your job does something that you don't agree with, are you going to leave your job? No. So it's like, to me, it was like, people like to project, onto it's like what they call the Monday morning quarterback type thing, where like, well, if I was in the game, I would have threw it. No, you would have got sacked too.
I would have said, "Yo, don't throw that kid out because this and that." Yeah, right. Like, you're not going to say that on stage. I wouldn't have. If I'd been in your situation, dude, and I've been in situations where Chris has stood up for me. Like, he's a good friend. He stands up for his openers. You're working for him and you're opening for him, so you kind of just got to roll with it. And it's like, but it's in retrospect, it's like, ooh, who would have thought that of all things that dude would be a blogger and that it would have gone viral like that? And what was I feel like really hurt Chris, and God bless him, because like he's still doing it. He makes money. He's still like a huge influence on me. I love him to death. But after that, Reddit, that whole Reddit thing with the thousands of comments of all the times he'd been impatient with fans, I felt for him, man. And I felt like this dude, it's all coming down on him because gamers and nerds can be vengeful, and they can be mean. And I was like, I felt like he really, that was not like, I just felt bad for him. And I tried to stand up for him. And like a lot of people asked me my opinion. And I saw you jumped in on the thread and like kind of explained the story, which is why I wanted to ask you about it.
Yeah.
You were having his back too in the thread.
Oh yeah, and I always will. Like anytime, because it every couple of years this resurfaces and it becomes a thing where everybody remembers what happened, and I'm always like, yo, like I know everybody wants me to be like, yo, MC Chris bad, but nah, I can't do that. The dude gave me an opportunity that I would have never had otherwise. One,
Yeah,
but two, it's not even about that. Like if he did something that, you know, I get it. Like what he did, I wouldn't have done that. But it's not. Think like when I think about like on the scale of like atrocities that people commit, right? Some dude having to leave a show and getting his money back for a little concert, you know, that he planned to go to. That doesn't like, that's not a cancelable, like, oh, I can, no, oh, that's egregious. We are like, there are people out there like you see every day, like there are people assaulting people. There are people doing just things that are reprehensible and definitely worth quote unquote canceling for. But you know, a situation where somebody was removed from a show non-violently because of a disagreement that happened on Twitter. It's extreme and it's not right, but to me it's like, all right, okay, guys.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so to have that happen, like going back, like all of the response was just outrageous on all fronts, and I think it got a lot of press because it was like, oh, Twitter, you know, it's some people are getting kicked out of concerts because of what they tweet. So it was the extreme of what it represented, but I mean,
right, that was unprecedented, and that was the nerd rapper kicks out fan because of something said on Twitter. That was like, oh, that was like clickbaity, and that was also like Twitter was only what 4 or 5 years old, and so all of that fed into it. And then the meanest thing was people being like, who is this guy to even take people out? Because people not in our scene or didn't know the Adult Swim connection, like he got his name out there, but not in the way you want. I don't know.
Yeah, it's bad publicity. And then like, you know, I look at it, you know, and even over the years as I've reflected on it, it's like, you know, a lot of us in this space, we're antisocial nerds, man. Like nobody, like when I was doing these raps, like I thought this shit would stay like, oh, I'm just doing this shit in my bedroom. I'm never gonna perform this shit live. I don't know. I don't really fuck with people like that anyway. But so to me, when I started this whole thing on my end, it was like I never expected to be doing tours and selling merch and shaking hands and signing it. Like that was not a part of the plan. So for that being the case, it's not like even Chris, I think like his stardom and his success in a way was like an experiment that blew up. Like I don't think he expected just like, I'm going to be a superstar going on the road. I'm going to have thousands of fans and I'm going to pack rooms and sell out concerts. And that's what the life I want. I don't think he wanted that. I think it just happened. And it's like, for us, like this shit just happened to us, man. And it's like, we still have all of these societal pressures and all of these like idiosyncrasies about us that sort of don't necessarily work in a Star is Born type of environment. Like me, I always say it, like I'm one of the hardest rappers to be a fan of because I'm so antisocial and reclusive. Like I'm horrible, and it's something I'm working on. But
you are humble and you're dope, and I think those two things in nerdcore, even nerdcore adjacent, those go far, man. And I feel like fans pick up on that, and that's why that tweet was unfair, because the dude didn't get that you are, like you're talking about being a gatekeeper, you are a nerd, you're very fluent in all this culture, you grew up on all this stuff, and like the definition of a nerd has changed. Nerdcore has expanded, it's become more inclusive and more interesting. But what is surprising is the dude didn't tag Chris. Chris had just had a search that was searching for his name, and he just wrote Dear MC Chris. He didn't even tag him. So Chris must have had his feed searching for his name, and that's why I saw it. And that's, I think, one of the things that like was shocking to people, because he wasn't even like tagged in the tweet, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. It was just name search. Yeah. And you know, like I get it.
But
like,
whatever.
I get it. But it's just wild to me that like, you know, you get all these people that are saying this stuff and it's like, you guys you don't know what goes into doing shows, man. You don't know what goes into any of that stuff. It's not, hey Mimi, it's not easy to be an artist at all, especially if like if your life isn't, you haven't been in a public eye like all of your life. This shit just fell in your lap and you just made what you had to make with it. So, you know, props to Chris for even being able to do what he does, because
Yeah.
you know, I like I said, like I'm the type of, like, I know what that's like. When I was first started, I had that youthful optimism. I was dropping albums every week, it seemed like. I was just working. And then you reach a certain point and it's like, holy shit, like what the hell has this become? Like, oh my God. And then you really, at that point, the weight of everything starts to just consume you. And if you're anybody like me or Chris or anybody that deals with depression or any sort of anxiety, that shit'll fuck your head up, man. Like, it took me 5 hours to do an album because I was so, my mind was like so not right. And my fans, the fans that I know, like I said, you have to be very patient and you have to be a very, I don't know, you have to be an iron-willed person to be my fan, because I'm so fucking unpredictable and weird with this shit. Because this rap shit is like, I know I could rap, I know I can make music, but it's not necessarily like the perfect career for my personality type.
You know, I'm supposed to be touring next year, and like hopefully COVID will be like at a point where it's manageable and safe. But I'm like, if it doesn't happen, I'm kind of like straight with fine chilling with my family and being home, because like, you know, I'm gonna miss my son, man. I've been thinking about that. Like being gone for as many weeks is, I don't know, I'm not as stoked about it as I used to be. Of course, I want to play music for the fans and keep doing MC Lars, and I will. But man, to like spend time away from home is a sacrifice in a new way. I bet you feel me on that.
Oh yeah. I spent some time away from my daughter, and it was like that. It was a lot of FaceTime and a lot of, yeah. It's not something, especially as they get older and they start like talking and like, you know, you don't want to miss milestones, and like they grow like at the especially like from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3, like they grow so fast. Like it's like 1 minute you're like goo goo gaga dada, and the next minute like you're having conversations with these little ones about life, and they're like, where did you learn that word? How are you, like the way they learn words, and you're just like, how do you know what that means? Like, it is the craziest experience to watch a little child grow.
And I bet, especially having a dad who's a wordsmith and a culture maven, like they have a lot of interesting, like, like I bet it's cool teaching them about what you like or what you don't like, and like relating to them, and so in a way better than, it's a creativity that transcends anything else, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, and it's wild because especially when they get old enough to listen to music and understand it and like it. My daughter heard the death and resurrection of Marcus Brown, which is a song about like life, I guess. It's one of the most personal songs I have. But in the intro, when she was 1, I taught her how to say I love you, and her I would you, that's how she would say it. So I recorded her saying it, and that's what the song starts with. So fast forward, she's now 3. She hears the song and she's like, Daddy, who's that? I'm like, oh, no, that's you saying I love you. And she's like, that's me. So then
That's beautiful.
so when she first discovers this song and she's like, that's you rapping. That's, or not rapping. She don't know what rap is, but that's you, Daddy. That's you singing. Yeah, that's me. And that was her first time really hearing and knowing that her dad is a musician. And she listened to that song. It was a week long of her not wanting to do anything but listen to that song over and over and over and over. Like the entire day, she would have the iPad. She's probably given me thousands of views by now on that video, just because she keep rewinding and listening to it again. And she started knowing the words. You'd hear her say "tumble, bumble." Like she starts, you know, like, and that's crazy. Like that. For everything else I've been through, that moment of my daughter like jamming my music and becoming a fan, like that, it's probably the greatest moment of my musical career, whatever you want to call this shit. Like it's, yeah, that's deep.
That's what's up. And that it's just something you both collaborated on in a way. She's on there.
Yeah, she's on
Guest
there.
Guest verse.
So like who knows what that'll do for her like down the way, but it's tight.
That's cool. I want to talk about your new record, but before we get into that, I want to talk about, so the tour you were on, Mega Ran. So switching gears back to the tour. Mega Ran joined that tour shortly after that show, right?
Yeah, I met Mega Ran for the first time the next night. We had a show in Baltimore. I was contemplating not doing that show because it was so much heat from Philly. And, people were in my inbox. Oh, I'm going to come to the Baltimore show and throw shit at you, or I'm going to heckle you. Like, the internet to me at that time was like a fucking hot hell, for lack of a better word. It was hell. And so I was scared that vibe that I was getting from the internet was going to translate and actually be felt in person. And so
Yeah.
Rand happened to be in the city, and so he wasn't supposed to join the tour until later. Like, I want to say a week into it, he was going to join the tour and be a part of my set. But that night he happened to be in Baltimore. He's like, well, I'll come through. How about I come through, do a couple songs, and I'll kind of get the heat off of you and introduce you. And my first time meeting Mega Ran was in this crazy situation of me being scared to do a show. And I remember I was backstage like, damn, I'm pacing back and forth. And of all the nights, this was the most crowded. Like, people usually kind of show up halfway through the opening set sometimes. But this night, it was packed. Like, everybody was there to see this sucky dude that the internet is, because everybody believed Mike was like, yeah, Richie Branson is trash. Everybody just ran with that. Oh, yeah, you're trash. You don't belong in the tour. Like, have you heard my music? Like, what are you talking about? But anyway,
Right.
So everybody was there. And Rand goes out, does a couple songs. And then he gives...
What's the venue?
Baltimore. What was the name of that venue?
It's not Auto Bar?
Auto Bar. Yep. Auto Bar. Yeah. So Auto Bar, we're doing a show. I'm scared as hell. But Rand just like gets the crowd so warmed up. And then, by the time like he's like, yeah, now I want to introduce y'all to, and he just bigged me up so crazy. And I walked out to like a crazy applause. Did my thing, and afterwards, I think that was the night I had sold more merch that night than every other show except Dallas. Dallas was the only night I had more merch sales, but that night, my merch line was crazy. And so that taught me the most important lesson I think I've learned in these years is that the internet and real life are two different places. No matter what you feel the internet has to say about you, it does not translate into what the real world and how people will receive you in real life. Because there's something about being behind that keyboard that just makes people different.
Totally. Or like anonymously sending hateful things. Like people feel more brave to talk, to be more negative, or in a way, be it whatever, right? It's a place to make believe.
Mm-hmm.
You can be whoever you want on the internet.
You can be whoever you want on the internet. People will believe it. That's the crazy thing. You will have believers.
And the other thing, Richie, that's interesting is like, I don't know if you've noticed this. Maybe you have too. Like, I'll put out a music video and I'll get 1,000 views.
It's wild.
And then which is like, on the low end. And then I'll play a show and there'll be 200 people there. And it's like, so that's confusing too. Like, you can be bigger as a touring artist than you can be next to a YouTube artist who doesn't tour. Like, it's so weird. That's new.
Yeah. It's like it goes to like I said, two different worlds. Like, there are artists that can have thousands and thousands and thousands of views on YouTube and have a huge following on YouTube. Put them on the road, see who shows up. It's a whole different thing when you have to get like, it's easy to go watch a YouTube video, but it's a lot harder to like build. And that's why it's so important when I see artists start to like, stream on Twitch, any way that you could communicate with your fans and like actually, build that fan base. It's different when you do that. When you have merch, it's all about like getting people to want to see you, not just listen to your shit. Anybody can put your shit on the radio, put your shit here, anywhere, but the fan base part of it. And I'm sitting here talking about it, but I don't even do that. Like, I'm such a weird mother when it comes to all this shit. Like, I don't know how I've managed to do what I've done, man. Like, this rap life is so incompatible with my personality, man. It's crazy, but hey.
You're interesting, Richie, because you are like, you're the internet artist who has toured, who puts out music, who gets hired to like help companies hack their brand or whatever, but you still put out I feel like you put out records more regularly than a lot of artists. Like From the Underground to the Stars came out in June, and yeah, that's your new record. So like, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that
Yeah.
album, because you came back with the fire and people were ready for it. Did people know it was coming? Like, what was your release plan? Talk to me about
I
that.
think people thought that it was that album. I had announced it and kickstarted it in 2015.
Okay.
2015, I kickstarted that, and I had this vision. I was like, all right, this is gonna be dope. I'm ready. I got the fire. I then shit, like right after that, I found out I was expecting my first child, and I got sick at the same time. And I was like, it was just weird. Like I found myself being tired all the time. I was winded. My throat constantly hurted. So when I would record, I couldn't record to the ability that I wanted to. And I kept updating the fans like, yo, I don't know what's going on, but hey, I can't record this shit like I thought I would. And turned out I had thyroid cancer, which on the spectrum of cancers, if you want to get cancer, thyroid is not a bad cancer to get.
Ugh.
But if you are a rapper who gets cancer, thyroid is a bad cancer to get because it's all here. Everything they got to do is right next to your vocal cords and your whole voice box. So I had to get surgery to remove. I had 3 tumors on my windpipe. They came in, took that shit out. And to this day, like I can't play a show more than 30 minutes, if that. If I talk too long, like my shit starts hurting. I've got nerve damage, so it's
Oh man.
yeah, it's still difficult for me to do. I feel like Darth Vader, you know, he has to wear the mask. I mean, I can still swing a lightsaber and do all that cool shit, but it's just a little harder for me. You know? So yeah, that happened. Fucked my entire world up. Because I had the surgery for cancer to have the tumors removed, and then 3 weeks later, my daughter was born. And so at that point, I fell off the fucking earth. I'm not gonna lie, I fell off the planet. Everybody's like, "What the fuck happened to Richie? What's going on with the album?" Blah blah blah. I was just trying to pick up the pieces of my life and construct what I could to raise a child. That honestly, I didn't think I would be. I didn't, you know, when somebody tells you have cancer, the first thing, what happens to you is you get preoccupied with death. Like, and for somebody who, if you have any sort of depression or any sort of mental health things going on, like you do not want to be preoccupied with death. That is, yeah. So I spent years just getting over like the thought of dying young and the thought of like, and to this day, I'm still super pessimistic about that stuff. But needless to say, it took a while to sort of figure out. And then the crazy thing is, like, when I was sick and I had my daughter, that was November 2016. I had my daughter, November 2016. I was so fucking broke, yo. Like, my car got repossessed the week after I got out of surgery. My daughter was born. We had rats in our apartment. I remember walking to the dollar store with like $3 in my pocket, and I'm like, do I buy this little food or do I buy some rat traps? Like, what are we doing here?
Where were you living?
Wichita Falls, Texas.
Oh boy.
So my wife was handling, you know, she was working as a teacher and, you know, taking care of everything. I was just like in a bad spot. And I mean, we were staying in this apartment was so bad. Rats and shit, you know, it was just sickness, rats, a kid, a newborn. Like, it was just like this, just,
It's the 10 plagues of Egypt. Yeah.
yeah, it was this crock pot of just misery. Like, I was so miserable.
Oh man.
And then, you know, at the time I was doing all this like these little projects and stuff because I couldn't rap. So I started making memes and funny videos. And I dropped what did I drop? I dropped all kinds of funny shit. I dropped this meme where I was like getting robbed by a Pokemon Go. So Squirtle robbed me and I got shot by Squirtle, and I did like 10 million views. I was just doing all kinds of just funny videos and managing to just build my Facebook, and it was kind of crazy. It was like a really good time. But I wasn't making any money. Like, I was still broke, getting all these views because they weren't on YouTube and they weren't monetized because I was an idiot. But anyway, we get to a point where we're coming up on December, and 2 things that turned my life around happened in December. One, I I no, that was December 2015. All right, so rewind. December 2015, we dropped Life After Death Star, which was like a really dope project. It was Star Wars and Biggie mashed up, and it was the craziest. It was the craziest project ever. It blew up way more than I thought it would, and it was dope. Me and my cousin put that together.
Blew up like the Death Star.
Yeah, it did. And then I went on tour with Ran. I went on tour with Ran in January. We did an East Coast, a West Coast run. We went through the Pacific, Midwest, all that Southwest, all that good stuff. It was a fun tour.
Beautiful drives.
And I remember, yeah, when I knew I was getting sick, we were in San Jose and I was supposed to perform, and I could not do it. I was laid out on the couch in the green room, like sick, 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 sick. Felt like I don't know what COVID felt like, but this shit felt like that. But it was so weird because I never got that sick before, just on to a point of exhaustion. And so after that, like I started going to the doctor and stuff started to become clear as to what was going on. So by fast forward, now we're in October. I got the surgery. My kid's born in November, and everything is shit. Like my life is shit.
You're not sleeping, all that stuff, normal dad stuff, right? Yeah.
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 Yeah. So then, like, I remember I was just trying to figure my life out. And then I got a phone call from Bleacher Report not too long, like, into December. And they were like, yeah, we like the way that you do all this stuff. We want to hire you to do it for us. You're moving to Cali. And like that, life changed. 6 months later, I bought a Maserati. Like, that's how crazy things change. Like, I went from, and so then you've got this whole other issue, right? Like I went from being like super just broke to having more money than I've ever made in my life. I didn't know what to do. I don't like it's like I equate it to like a diver. Like when you're at the bottom, you have to come up slow.
Right.
If you come up too fast as a diver, like you get fucked up and you die. So the same thing happens with like any sort of situation you're in. Like if you come up from the bottom of whatever you think is the bottom and you end up being in this super successful spot overnight, it fucks your head up. And that's why you hear a lot of stories about like whether it's athletes or rappers or whatever, like when they go up, like shit just changes. So I've got so many stories like of like I got robbed in Colombia by some drug dealers. Like
What?
I've got a lot of stories. Yeah, I got so many stories. Like 'cause at that point, I just started traveling the world, man. Like I had money, I had time. We had a nanny, so I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go travel and try to find myself, like because at that point, like I had completely lost identity of who I was because everything was different. And I was still trying to find, I guess you could say I was trying to find inspiration to get back to the album because at this point I was just so shot. Had so many conflicting emotions that I had to, I guess, explore and figure out like what I guess, I just I had to learn some shit. So I learned a lot of lessons. Getting robbed was a big lesson.
You gotta tell that story, even if briefly.
Okay.
Where were you? What happened? How are you still living? Like that's nuts, man.
Yeah. So I went to Colombia, took a random solo trip to Colombia. I went by myself to South America. So I get to the city, I'm walking around trying to figure out, at this point, I know Spanish now, but at that time I knew no Spanish. So getting by in a Spanish speaking country without knowing Spanish by yourself is not something I recommend. So don't do that. So pro tip number 2, if you don't speak Spanish and you're in a Spanish speaking country, if anybody comes to you talking in English, stay the fuck away from them because they're up to no good.
Yeah.
So this guy comes up, he's like, my brother, how are you liking my country? I'm like, oh, it's cool. He's like, if you need weed, you need anything, I got you. Weed, yep, I want it. What's up? So he gave me this is how they get you. He gave me a little sample. He was like, yeah, take this back to the, to wherever you're staying, smoke it. If you want more, hit me up on WhatsApp and we'll make it happen. So I get back to the crib, roll a little blunt, smoke it. It was all right. I mean, it was not, I've come to realize that weed down there it's nothing compared to the weed that we have here. But when you're, 3,000 miles away from home, it'll suffice. So I was like, you know what? I'll go ahead and get like a little I was only there for 4 days. So I was like, I'll get 4 days worth of weed.
Had you always wanted to go to Colombia or like?
No, it was just totally random. I was literally just like, why not? So we go, I go meet with the guy to buy what I perceive to be a couple days worth of weed, a little eighth, to hold me over till I go home. So we meet on this little side, like the way the city was set up is like there's a touristy area, and as soon as you walk out that motherfucker, it is not safe. So we get across the street from the touristy area. He sits down on the curb, and the guy, he's like, "Yeah, I'm El Jefe. I'm the boss of this city." Probably bullshit, but he was still like, "Yeah, what you need, what you looking for." I was like, "Oh yeah, well, I told you, boy, I just wanted a little bit. I'm only here for a few days." So he's like, "Well," he pulls out this big zip. He's like, "Well, this is what I got for you. It's going to be 1,000,000 pesos, which is $300." And I was like, "I'm not buying that. Like, I only wanted a little bit. I'm not about to carry this big sack of weed around with me in a country I've never been to. No, not happening." So then he's talking to his boy in Spanish, and then he gets up. And shit got serious when he gets up and he slaps the dude in the face, and he's telling him, "You told me this guy was going to buy something real. You got me out here for a little 8 ounce. No, no, no." Then he looks at me like, "Give me the 1,000,000 pesos." And I'm like, "No, I'm not buying anything." And
Did
he's
you
like,
have it
"No,
on you?
No, I did not have it on me."
Yeah.
So, but he was like, this is when I realized how clean their setup was. Like, this is the type of robbery where I was like, "You rapscallions, like, I got to give it to you. Y'all setup was crazy.
Okay.
I'll never fall for that again." So, they're like, "No, you're just going to give me the 1,000,000 pesos for wasting my time." And I'm like, "No." So then knives come out, and I'm like, "Oh,
Oh.
okay." And then a door opens up. It was like a car, like where I was sitting, like maybe 6 feet to my left, there was a car that had been parked there the whole time. Dude gets out the car and opens the door. "Yeah, if you don't want to give it to us, then we're just going to go for a ride and figure it out." I was like, all right, if I get in that car, it's probably not going to be good. So then they're like, "There's an ATM right across the street, right there. Go get it." I was like, "Oh, okay." So they follow me, knifing back to the ATM. And the way the ATMs are there is they're like little enclosed, like phone booths almost, where you go into the open the door, you go in. And so it was big enough to fit me and another guy in. So the guy's in there, and he's like, "Chick, get it out." So I get 600,000 out. Give him 600,000 pesos. Like, that's all. I don't know why my dumb ass was trying to short these people, but I was just trying to go out. I don't know why. Maybe it was pride. I didn't want him to get me for the whole amount. So I'm like, "Here's 600,000. That's all my bank will let me get, baby." "No, do it
Right.
again. Do it again."
Oh, Richie, you really pushed your luck, man.
Yeah. So once they got the 1,000,000 pesos, they all run off. But I'll never forget what the dude told me before he ran off. He was like, "Yeah, he's like, you a nice dude. If anybody talks to you in English, don't talk back." And he ran away. And that was it. I got robbed. So after that, I'm like, "Oh man, this is crazy. Like, I can't believe this shit." So I go,
You were lucky, dude.
yeah, I go to a bar, and at this point I'm sad. I'm by myself. Like, I have nobody there to like, I was like scared because, I'm solo. So I go to a bar. The guy's like, "Yo, you look like you're having a rough time. Like, you good?" I was like, "Nah, not good." So then he's like, pulls out this little baggie of Colombian nose candy. He's like, "Hey, this will help you out." I was so depressed. I was like, "You know what? I never did coke in my life." But I was like, "Damn it, here we go." Took a little rip, and I was like, all right, cool. Hey. So forgot all about being robbed.
Me
And the rest
gusta.
of the trip was great. Yeah, me gusta. 100% pure.
I've never done coke. What does it feel like? Is it like having like Bryce Whitey Cracker said he says 15 minutes of BS of you're just hype and then you're down. But I don't know. Maybe tell me what it was like.
This was more like 30 minutes. Since it's pure, I guess the time lasted a little longer, but it's like, it's almost like, honestly, I don't know why it's illegal. Like, you sniff it, you feel up, and you're just, hey, okay, cool. I'm hyped and I'm focused. I see why I've never done it since, but I see why like stock people use it. I see why people use it. It's like Adderall on steroids. Like, it just makes you, but Adderall lasts longer. But Coke is like, it just gets you up, and you just can focus on whatever the hell you want to focus on.
Like you had 10 cups of coffee or something like that, or
Yeah, like, and you're walking with your chest out, and you just feel invincible and full of energy. It's not I don't know what I thought it was like some shit because I swore up and down all my life. I'll never touch that. Oh, that's horrible. But I
Right.
did, and I was like, this is it. This is what people are dying to get to. Like, how many people have died in the name of transporting coke to America?
Right.
And I'm like, this is what people die for?
What does it feel when it's done? Do you feel tired then?
Um, so I guess in my case, it's like I just came back to normal. But when I was describing it to one of my friends who's an enthusiast of that, he was like, well, if you have cut cocaine, then you feel like your come down is horrible. Like you said, you come down and you just feel, But he's like, since you had pure, like your come down is a little less. So I came down to normal. Although the next morning, I think what happened was I woke up the next morning, I was paranoid as hell. Like I heard some knocking on the door and I assumed it was the people who robbed me and I was just like freaking the
Ooh.
fuck out. So he's like, well, yeah, that's a part of it. Like you might feel a little paranoid when you come down for your first time. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah. So cut meaning they put stuff with it to stretch it longer.
Yeah, so like when they get it to by the time it gets to America, like it's not pure anymore. Like they've cut it with baking soda or they may have cut it with flour, just stuff to like,
Oh,
dilute it so that they could get more money and they could stretch the money further. So, like they're selling like like it's like if you took weed and mixed it with grass so that you could sell more, something like that. Yeah.
or if you make an EP and do 7 skits, and here's my new record.
Yeah, you go. Yep, yep, yep. It's like this is half skits.
So, okay. Well, speaking of records, From the Underground to the Stars dropped, and it's cool. Like it was cool going on your Spotify, seeing that your fans are peeping your songs because, like, they're definitely. It's cool to see. Oh, like I like when a friend of mine drops a record and then their new songs go into their top songs on Spotify. Because it means that the album's got a good reaction.
Yeah, so like the way I described it was like it's so very because it represents like the past 5 years of my life, which have been like hey, this has been a movie. So like, there's songs that are coming from somebody who's, broke as hell. You got, like Commoner versus Commoner, I'm talking about my car needs new parts and shit. And then you've got songs like Drift King where I'm just talking, about, having a nice car that can get sideways. That represents a part of my life. You've got songs that are, specifically targeting like depression, like Paxil, which is written about, is named after the medication I was prescribed for depression that I stopped taking. And so, you've got like just all of these different sort of like pieces of who I am, whether it's the mental health part, whether it's the fact that I like fast cars and I've owned some cool cars, or whether it's the fact that I've been, traveled so much. I've got a couple of songs where I reference some of my travels.
Did you really almost quit rap to become an EDM producer?
I did, yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, that song that song that I
Yeah.
produced, that was the first record I made after I recovered from the surgery, and I was like, oh, there's no way I'm gonna rap again, so let me just start getting good
Oh,
at this. So that
yeah.
was the record I made I had it all planned out. I was gonna be my DJ name was gonna be DJ Psycho Menace.
That's like,
Like Psycho Manus, but Psycho Menace. And I was going to wear a gas mask to gigs, like Psycho Manus did in Metal Gear Solid.
that's tight. That's tight.
That was my gimmick. Like I was I was looking up gas masks on Amazon.com. I was too broke. And things are expensive. For a good gas mask, it's like a couple hundo. And like at the time I didn't have it, but I was like, yeah, I'm going to get a gas mask. This is going to be my new career, the rebirth of Richie Branson as this EDM producer because Lord knows I can't rap anymore. So
Kind of like an MF Doom thing, but like if you were not without the rap.
exactly. So I was
Yeah.
going to be the MF
Yeah.
Doom of EDM.
How's the reaction been? Do you feel like fans have been? Talk to me about that.
I think it's crazy because I expected a bad reaction, mostly because it took so long to make. But everybody that's heard it has been like, yo, this was worth the wait. Like people who like backed the project from 2015, the original like big money backers have been like, yo, I know everything is taking a while. You fell off the face of the earth and had us all sweating, but this was worth it. And to hear that from the people who believed in me 5 years ago, to hear that they still believed in me now, like that, I don't know. Words can't explain what that means to me because shit, if I had an
Yeah.
artist that I believed in 5 years ago and all of a sudden they drop into some shit now, I might be like, meh, I ain't listening to that shit. Or I might be like, oh, you just, nah, this ain't it. You fell off, dog. But to be able to make sure that they felt good about the project that they believed in, that was really good. And to see just like new fans that have listened to it and been like, yo, this dude is spitting. Like, wow, he's really dope. And I think a lot of it, it's crazy because there's a version of the album that exists that's about 12 songs. And I think I cut 7 of those songs and started over. So like yeah, it's been through some revisions and like I think like, and it's funny because now that I'm in the game development, like I see the way that the development cycle for that album went is a lot similar to how game development goes, where it's you get feature creep. It's like you never want to say, okay, it's done. It's always, oh, we could add one more song, or I need to capture this mood, or I need to do this. And so
Yeah.
I think there was a year of that for me where I was just like, well, no, I think there's one more song. Let me do this. No, let me do that. No, this, and so, and it kind of alludes to the point you made earlier where like it doesn't like now like the music that I make, there's no calculation in terms of will this sell, what will this do. It's just you're just gonna get me because there's no stakes in it for me now. It's just like, all right, you're gonna get authentic Richie Branson music that's just made for the sheer enjoyment of it, which makes it different. And it makes it more authentic. But I know I don't know, like like I think that a lot of nerdcore depends on being topical, right? Like if something's out, you have to fucking rap about it, And I remember doing that, So I know, like, hey, some shit
Yeah.
comes out, like you better rap about it or do something, damn it. Like when Star Wars, the Force Awakens came out, we dropped Life After Death Star
Woo.
right before that shit dropped. If we would have dropped it any other time, it wouldn't have did that what it did. But since we dropped it right when the hype was coming out, like timeliness and topicality is so imperative to making nerd music. And half of it though, it's not even that I don't want to. Like there's so many times where I see a moment and I want to capture it, whether it's through a song, a meme, or anything. But it's like the projects that I'm working on now are so time consuming that it's like I have to let them opportunities pass. And so I've seen things
Yeah.
where I've like not done something and I've seen somebody else do something and go super viral. And I'm like, damn, I was going to do that. And I just didn't.
Then that comes down to the timing being more important than the art itself. And
Mhm.
that's why then you're just, I don't know, man. Then you're just making content for the social media corporations to get a higher stock exchange that week if you go viral, right?
Yeah, it's almost like it's like the other side of the spectrum with this, and like I know people who put out like records that are super topical and they have a formula to this shit. It works. And it's like, wow, y'all are killing the internet with this shit. But
Yeah.
on the same token, it's like I'm at a point where, like the projects that I'm working on now, one of them I can't even talk about it because I'm on NDA, but it's like I get like this weird feeling like what I'm working on, like I'm passing up so many opportunities to make music, to be topical, to build Richie Branson up. But it's like I've sort of put that aside to work on something that when it comes out, my name's going to be in the credits. And it's like, it's history, it's historic. And so,
Holler.
yeah, so I can't wait to talk about it. Hopefully by the end of this year, maybe early next year, I can. But all that to say that like there's sort of like this balance that is created. So you have your personal brand, and then you have, there's ways that this works. And I always talk about. I remember talking to Mega Ran about this. Every artist that I talk to, I've always had this concept of like, what is the end game? It's like with Jedi. What is your blue ghost moment where you become one with the force and that's just what you do? What does that look
Yeah.
like for you? For me, becoming one with the force was just a point where like I was able to turn all of the skill sets that I've learned as an artist and as a creative into a career. Now I get to work for a company that makes video games and music. And so like that's sort of it for me. Like, okay, this is what I do, and so you see it. You'll see artists that kind of reach a point where it's like, all right, this is where my career has landed me, and this is where it's going to kind of stay, or maybe not stay, maybe because that means static, but like this is the not the plateau, but this is the level where my trajectory has placed me. And so for others, it's going on tour and being able to tour. Like, I can't tour. I don't have the type of fan base that I could actually build a tour around. So that wasn't my end game. But for Chris, it was touring, and it was being able to do that, and that's crazy. Like, man, going to the Chris shows, like I can't draw a crowd like that. Like, that man can draw a crowd. Like, yo, so yeah, everybody's got their own end game, and it's all about like figuring out what works for you. Because at the end of the day, it's like we all want to be able to make a living doing what we love, and this is the vehicle for that. What does the vehicle look like? And so for everybody, it's different. So I know Doc Ock works for a gaming company too, and like that's the vehicle is landed for him in that. And so it's like you get people who do it and they end up either in the industry or they end up being an incredibly successful artist who this is their career, or it's different places you can land in this shit. But you got to think about that. Where do you want to land with that? Because if you don't, you get burned out.
Well, and yeah, Richie, and it's also like increasingly the music industry is the tech industry. It's algorithms. It's figuring out how to like hack YouTube and Spotify with like the right stuff at the right time. And it's not, and so if you're like someone like you or me who's good at marketing ourselves as a brand, that's a skill set that is fungible and relates to other things. And so like, I like how you said it, the end game is just, I feel like being self-sustaining, in our case, like being able to help be there for our family and like still loving music, man. I always, when I do Patreon and I do songs every month, but I try to make sure that I'm in a mode where I'm excited to record and I want to, and I'm not just punching the clock. Because I know if I'm not trying to do it because I want to, it's going to suffer. My fans will know. So staying authentic to me is endgame. Being truly passionate about the things I care about, because that makes me a better husband. It makes me, a better person. It makes me a better friend. And I never want to feel like the industry's used me, because you hear stories of people like in the 90s screwed over by a label deal, yada, yada, yada. And we have the privilege of not ever having like an album shelved, right, by a label.
Ooh, yeah, that's the worst.
Yeah.
I've had a production deal go sour, real sour, and it hurt. And it kind of made me never want to even try to chase after like a industry level music deal, because it's terrible. What they do to artists is, I've seen it firsthand. It's not cool. So, it's like the art versus commodity. There's some people that are really good at churning out music quickly and getting it up and hacking the algorithms. And it's like, if that's the end game as well. That's an end game as well. And it works to people who are able to output like that. I can't. I used to be able to do that, but now it's like I had to find another way. I think if I never got sick, I'd have like 2 million subscribers on YouTube, and I'd be throwing all kinds of shit up there. But I can't output like that, so I had to find another route that for me has been just as financially lucrative. But it's a different energy. It's just different, So it's all about finding your way.
That's what's up. I wanted to end asking you 2 questions. I never asked you where you got your name, because your name isn't actually Richie.
No,
Can you tell that story?
Yeah, sure. So
yeah,
this kind of goes into the thing I was talking about. So yeah, almost 10 years ago, one of my friends got signed to Def Jam. My cousin had produced a single for him. I had produced a single for him. He flew out to audition for L.A. Reid. He performed both singles in front of L.A. Reid, and L.A. Reid signed him to Def Jam that night. I remember getting a phone call about it, and like, because we were the producers on the songs, like, yeah, I cried when I got the phone call. I felt like, I made it. I'm going to be a super producer. We produced a mixtape that Def Jam put out, and everything was lining up. Like the stars had aligned. We were rocking. Shot the video.
What's the artist name?
Bone. He's a good dude. Good dude. The
Okay.
song's called Homegirl. If you
Okay.
look at a very vulgar song, but that song was hot back circa
All right.
2009, circa 2010. So we were prepared like to just we're gonna move. We're gonna get Ferraris and like that was gonna be life. So I remember we were looking at getting our publishing deal. I'll get to that later.
Uh-huh.
But in the midst of that, our manager, who we had the same manager as Bone, it was all sort of this family thing, right? And so we had I had produced a single for an artist named Charlie Boy who was signed to Jive at the time. That song was heating up on the radio, and it looked like they were going to run with that for a single. So like within the span of months, we were going to have 2 Billboard charting singles with our production. Very famous DJ had reached out wanting to sign us to a production deal. So we were hot stuff, man. Like shit was about to get real. So we started this group because Jive Records was looking to sign potentially. They were looking for some artists to sign. Our manager had, an open situation with them to where we would potentially get signed to Jive Records. We just needed to put together a demo. So we came up with the name for the group. We called ourselves Mr. Millionaire. And all of our names were based after like famous millionaires. So my cousin Jeremy, who's now Solar Slim, back then his name was Jay Forbes. I'm embarrassing y'all today, boy. My partner Dub, his name was what was his name? Boss Perot. Ross Perot, Boss Perot, yeah. And then and then my cousin Willie, God bless his soul. This was before Trump became Trump, but his name was Willie
Right.
Trump. His rap name was Willie Trump. And so I was like, well, who do I want to be named after? I don't want to be Rockefeller. So I thought about it. And, I was able to produce. I knew how to record, mix, master. Like, you could put me in a studio and I could make everything happen by myself. So I was like, well, that's kind of versatile, like Richard Branson, the entrepreneur who owns a record shop and an airline and this and that. So I will go by Richie Branson. And that's how Richie Branson became Richie Branson.
But it's funny because everyone else's name was like a flip. You took his name and just made it his nickname. Like Richard could be Richie. That's kind of funny.
Yeah. Like I could have been like Mark Branson or like Marco. I could have like been more creative. Just like, just use Richie Branson. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. I hate the name.
It's tight.
I'm Richie. But it was just, in hindsight, I probably would have picked something else.
Lars isn't my real name, right? You probably knew that.
I thought your name was Lars though, because it sounds such like it sounds like a name that would just be, his name must be Lars. But it's not Lars.
Right. It's like a funny thing to take a name that's like an actual name, but it's not your name. It's like Adam Warrock. His real name's Eugene. Do you know that dude?
Yeah.
I thought he was Adam forever. It's like, oh, he's Eugene. What? And he had to, Tribe One had to explain to me the origin of that, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Adam Warrock. Adam Warlock. I didn't even know that. Like, I didn't know that at the time. I was like, oh, Adam. Must be dude named Adam that goes off.
Yeah. That's what's up. So the new record, y'all can stream it, check it out. It's From the Underground to the Stars.
With this one, honestly, this was my worst promoted, there was no method to this madness. I was just like, you know what? We're under quarantine. I think the album is finalized. Let me just put it out. There was no method to this one. Normally, what I like to do is a rollout, though, where I'll put out say 3 weeks worth of just like weekly releases on YouTube, really build up the anticipation. Usually there's like more of a theme. Like this was the first album that didn't have like a specific theme. It was supposed to be a Gurren Lagann anime themed album, and it turned into something completely different. But normally I'd have a cohesive theme. So like Gundam, for example, the 20th anniversary or the 50th anniversary of Gundam was last year in 2019. Originally, like my plan was to drop Space Noids. It was an album about like inspired by Gundam. I was going to drop it around that 50th anniversary year, but I was sick and I was depressed and going through a lot of shit, so I couldn't. But that would be how I would approach like my projects. I always try to anchor them to some sort of big moment in social consciousness, even if I
Yeah.
have to create the moment. Like, perfect example, I made a game called Harambe versus Capcom, where I put Harambe into Capcom and gave him a story, and, and it was the funniest shit. But I did that not too long after Harambe died. And he had
Right.
become a meme at that point. So I was like, how do you just, like, my goal is to kill a meme. Like, my goal is to do something so outrageous it just takes the meme to a level of like, well, shit, this is not a meme anymore. This is just a part of culture. And so that was Harambe
Right.
versus Capcom. But my boy had a song that he did called Dicks Out for Harambe. So I was like, all right,
I
well,
remember that.
yeah, we're just going to use your song as a trailer music. Let's get a Spotify link and, I told him, get all your shit together because this shit is going to go. And sure enough, it went. And everybody was like, where can we find the song? And they had it up on SoundCloud and stuff. So, like, I look at music, and this is my philosophy that I use when it comes to marketing, right? And this is like some deep shit. Welcome to Richie Branson School of Marketing, guys.
Yeah,
But
yeah, this is good.
this music that we make, it's medicine. Music is medicine, right? Now, whenever
Right.
we encounter medicine as an end user, it's always in its final digestible form. It's either a pill, it's in a syringe, it's a liquid cap, it's a liquid gel, it's something. But that medicine did not look like that when it first was created. It was some weird
Right.
powdery looking shit that is not just friendly for human consumption. You don't look at aspirin in powder form and be like, oh yeah, it's not appealing. It's not easy for you to digest. So
Yeah.
when I look at my music, I look at it like this medicine powder. It's good for you, but how do you get people to want to digest it? What vehicle, what syringe are you putting this shit in to inject it into the veins of your fans? That syringe could be a meme. That syringe could be a funny video. That syringe could be a moment. But either way, I try not to. Now, From the Underground with the Stars was an exception, but normally I don't ever release anything without a moment attached to it. You have to have the music and you have to have the moment to match. And it's up to you to
Yeah.
create, that moment. I don't know why I keep looking at my mic like I'm talking to the mic, but you have to you have to have music and you have to have the moment. And if you can marry the music and the moment in just the right way, your shit will blow up. Old Town Road, perfect example. Lil Nas X just dropped that song.
Yeah.
It blew the fuck up.
Yeah. Well, because he had the moment being like country and rap were having this interesting amalgamation and people wanted to, and then the dance on TikTok, right? That's kind of what blew it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a TikTok moment, the blending of culture. And sometimes the moment is just a state of consciousness that you break. He broke the state of consciousness of hip hop and country. That could never work. And he made it work. If you could fuse two things and that's why Life After Death Star worked, because here it is this Harlem rapper. I'm not Harlem. Oh, excuse me. No, this Brooklyn rapper. Yeah, Brooklyn would murder me right now. This rapper from
Right.
Bed-Stuy fused with, Cloud City of Bespin. You fuse those two worlds together and people don't know what the fuck to do, but it sounds good. And so sometimes that's what the moment is. It's you create it. It's like nuclear fusion. Sometimes that creates the moment.
So it's like you talk about, Plato talks about the perfect forms, right? Like in the allegory of the cave, right? You look up, you see the shadow and you see the real thing. And like great artists connect those different actual forms and that becomes like a transcendent thing. I mean, I talk about this movie all the time on this podcast, but Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Cartoons with the film noir. And then in a way where Disney animation needed that renaissance, like, or nerdcore even, like nerdy culture and like underground hip hop that's like actually respecting the skills. Like that became a thing, like amalgamation. So it's a lot about timing. And I like what you said that you can kind of manufacture it because you can see it's bubbling up and it needs to be a thing. That's interesting, man. That's like performance art and that's culture hacking. And that to me is so much more interesting than no disrespect to anyone who's done this, but like just dropping a song about the new Luigi's Mansion game just because it's out. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's different, but it has to be Luigi's Mansion as a metaphor for for COVID or something, like the castle we're all stuck in quarantine, right?
It has to be that. And it's like that's where I think I've managed to find success, is just knowing how to identify that. Because you're right, you could just say, "Oh, Luigi's Mansion out," and you could drop your Luigi's Mansion rap and be among the 50 other people doing Luigi's Mansion raps that week, because that's a set format. That's the first thing that I would think to do. Oh, Luigi's Mansion's coming out. Oh, let me do a rap. But if you were to say, well, nah, let me not do that. Let me take it to this level and make it stand on its own. You kind of just create something that's different, and it's not easy to identify it. Sometimes I can name a lot of duds that I've had, in addition to the successes. But it's like, it's always, it's always something that you realize, like they say, hindsight is 20/20. And whenever I do postmortems on the shit that won for me, I could always see where I was following along. Like I had the idea for Life After Death Star back in 2012. And I sat on it all the way until Star Wars was about to come out, because I knew that it would be fever pitch to drop it around that time. And it worked.
Yeah.
It worked,
And guess what? People don't forget Biggie. That's one of the artists that, like, he's never out of style. That dude is timeless. And so you picked the right artist.
Exactly.
What's interesting to me about hip hop, if you look at it as a genesis, as a cultural form, it's always about merging technology. And this is what makes it postmodern, right? Merging technology and using the tools of consumption to therefore be the tools of remixing, recreation, and retelling a story in an interesting way. And that's why Marshall McLuhan says the medium is the message, right? That's like a famous old school phrase. Like the fact that it's this culture that's cut up, retold, and rebranded. The technology of Grand Wizard Theodore creating the scratch or Kool Herc creating the breakbeat is just as important as the James Brown song itself. So the medium is the message. What you're doing with the culture is just as important as what you're saying. So therefore, fast forward 50 years or whatever, on a macro level, what you're saying is like this really interesting continuation of this like culture hacking, because the medium of taking the Harambe thing, making a Street Fighter, and then the song is cool. It makes sense because you're like tagging into this moment of like absurd tragedy of this animal dying. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? It's like everything coming together, and flipping that is very true to hip hop culture, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then you add the new element that I think is happening in social culture of just the rewarding of extreme. It doesn't matter,
right.
And that's why, like, when Trump won, I kind of wasn't surprised, because I was like, yeah, he's an extreme personality, and you get rewarded for being extreme, whether you're extremely good or extremely bad. People reward extreme personalities. And so when you translate that to media, it's the same. A perfect example. When Fallout 4 came out, I made a mod where I put David Ortiz, the Boston Red Sox legend, because, the game took place in Boston, but they couldn't use the actual Boston Red Sox icons and shit in the game. So I put a real Boston Red Sox jersey and made David Ortiz in this game. Made a video of him, like, knocking zombies' heads off with the bat. Packaged it all up with "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" and put it out there, right? I put this out there. It got no views. Like, nobody was talking about this shit. I sent it to Kotaku. I sent it to every gaming site you could think of, and nobody talked about this shit.
You designed this character and like made the jersey and everything?
Yeah, yep. But nobody covered that. You're probably reading a story about it right now, and you're going to see why. It's because the Boston Globe, they did an article about it. Just a little write-up like, oh, look, Boston fan creates David Ortiz. So it was just that one site that covered it. The dude wrote a little write-up about it. The next day, I get a cease and desist letter from the MLB, and he had emailed me and said, "Yeah, I was doing an interview. I'd asked the MLB guy what they thought about this, and they told me they were pretty like concerned about it. My bad, bro." But what ended up happening is, because he reached out to the MLB for comment on this story, and they sent me that cease and desist, he made another article. MLB threatens to sue game modder for creating Fallout mod.
That's news.
And every news site that I sent that shit to covered it with that as the headline. MLB suing Fallout modder because he put David Ortiz in the game. And the shit blew up. So, extremes, I told you.
The fallout was bad for them.
Yeah, the fallout. Yeah, it's the Streisand effect. Like, nobody was talking about the shit.
Yeah.
And then everybody talked about it, you know?
We mentioned when we were doing this, anyone who missed our Twitch tournament, the Streisand effect is, you brought this up and you reminded me about it. She had a picture of her house, right? And she asked that people like to not post it. And because of that, it went viral where her house was, like the photo of it. That's kind of the Streisand effect, right?
Yep. When you try to hide some shit. Yeah, it is it. Same thing with Beyonce. She had this like crazy, ugly photo that was taken of her during the Super Bowl performance. And I think like she tried to get them like snuffed out from the cameraman. Or something happened. She tried to get them removed. And now they're all over the internet as memes. So it's like,
right.
Yeah, it's a cost benefit analysis, but it all goes back to that principle of even the news. They cover extreme shit. You know, whatever you do, if you do it extremely, you'll get coverage. So what else? What's more extreme than putting Harambe in fucking Street Fighter? You know, like that's extreme.
What Big Daddy Kane ain't no half stepping. Don't do it unless you're totally all in.
Exactly.
I didn't expect to bring this up, but I think it's funny talking about Harambe and the memes of 2016. We did a song that was like, in retrospect, not timed so well. I actually did 2 songs as this character, one with you and one with like a bunch of other rappers on my album, which is now it feels like a dated title. It was called The Jeff Sessions.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
It's one of my favorite songs I've ever worked on. And I think you did great. Do you want to explain? You know what I'm talking about? The 2 frogs.
Yeah. The Pepe and that boy.
Yeah.
That was actually that was a dope song. Oh my God. That was a really good song.
I think we could have made a video for that, like even just a very basic animation or like just screenshots. I think it would have caught on, but like, it's cool because because it's the 2 memes. It's Pepe, the old frog, and then the new kid, Dat Boy. And it was kind of like our relationship is me as like the old MC in Nerdcore and you as the new guy who's getting all the shine. And, but the frogs having this like brotherhood, but also this competition. And yeah, man, I think you really killed it on that song, but like let's talk about the story. Am I missing anything from the story?
No, like, and it's funny that you say the parallel between the frogs and like the actual like state of where we were in Nerdcore, you know. And now like I feel like an old guy, and now I'm looking at these young guys, and I'm reaching out like, yeah, let's. So like it's crazy, like and one thing that I love about Nerdcore though versus like every other sort of like relationship where there's just a chronological changing of the guard, if you will, is that everybody is so supportive. Like all of the old goats are like, oh yeah, you go youngsters. And now I'm the you go youngsters. And part of that energy I owe to you guys. Like when I did a song with you, I felt like, fuck, I just did a song with Michael Jackson. Like, cause that's what you guys were when I was like getting in, and I was like, okay, MC Lars, that's that guy. Mega Ran, that's that guy. I remember I sent an email to Mega Ran as a fan. Like, yo, I want to one day make beats for you. And he was like, oh yeah, I bet if you got some, send it. Send him some fire. And he was using it on his album. Like, you know, next thing you know, now we're like, you know, we're boys. And so like, it's crazy to see there's no other genre of music where that happens on such an easy level of just like, you know, and I've got, you know, cats that I'm collabing with now that were sending me those type of emails back in the day. Like, yo, Richie, like, let's do a song together. And now like we're doing songs together. So it's like, the energy of just, you know, this collaboration that just continues and continues. And, you know, I would love, somebody needs to fucking be a historian for Nerdcore and really sit down and like, we need to like really organize the history of like, this is stage 1, this is this era. Because now we have multiple eras or generations of Nerdcore, you know?
Well, you'd be probably 3rd gen, right?
Yeah.
And now we're in Gen 5, maybe?
Yeah, I think Gen 5. Because now it's like, yeah, these guys are so young, man. Like, Like it made me feel old. But the YouTube part of it is so crazy. Like these dudes are getting hundreds of thousands of subscribers and they rep nerdcore just like we repped it. Like they probably use the word more than we did. Like they're like, I'm nerdcore. Like the pride in which they've wrapped it up, and they,
Sure.
it's like it's crazy to see that the touring part, which I don't know if they will. I don't know if they will. The economic model that is evolved now for them is all YouTube, all the algorithms online, which is cool. It's different,
It's
like
cool.
whereas like you guys cut your teeth on the live shows, like going on these big tours,
Yeah.
doing these big shows. Now it's like their game is just big videos on YouTube, which is it's cool. It's different. Me, I don't know. Like I personally, like I've said this a lot. Like I'm not the YouTube type of like that model for me. I think I've always been more of the I need to have iconic moments created and then somebody reaches out. Like after Life After Death Star, what was that film company? Warner Brothers reached out for me to do the same thing with Batman versus Superman. That's crazy, but for some reason that fizzled out. The talks fizzled out, but I was in talks with this film company to do this thing, this type of thing. But I can't remember what happened with that. But either way, just to say that like my model is like create big cultural moments and parlay that into work. It works for me.
And not forcing it, making sure it feels natural is important.
Yeah, it's always like me. I feel like I'm like Sting from the rafters with this shit. Like I'll just hang out of view, see a moment that resonates so heavy with me that I have to act, and Richie strikes again type shit. Like there'll probably be something that happens where Richie did that, didn't he? So I've been a little busy, but it's gonna come back. The Richie from the rafters. That's what I'm gonna call it. Richie from the rafters. Oh shit.
That's cool. Other than peeping your new album, where do you like to ask your fans to follow you on social media? Or
Follow my Twitter and my Instagram. Follow those. I have the website. It's funny. I'm a rapper with no website. It's the craziest thing, but I'm gonna put up my website because people have been asking like for a place where they can find all my music all in one spot. So I think a website would be good for that. So RichieBranson.com coming soon. But in the meantime, for the latest updates about what I got going on, Richie Branson on Twitter, Richie Branson on Instagram. Those are the two things for now.
follow on Spotify.
Spotify. I forgot about that. Damn. See, that's why it's so hard to be my fan. Spotify and YouTube. Follow those for sure. Especially YouTube and Spotify. Please. Thank you.
Can you talk for 2 seconds about the camp thing? Because I know you have a lot of stuff from that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't really know what that is.
Yeah, Camp is a cartoon produced by Rooster Teeth.
Okay.
Crazy. Rooster Teeth is, I always say this, they're the reason I still rap today. They reached out to me to do the soundtrack for Camp. Wow, this was right after I got sick and was starting to recover, or right before I got sick, actually. And it's been an incredible relationship with them. They are the best, and they are the reason that I stopped really caring about getting a record deal or anything, because working with a company like them, they've been just absolutely amazing. I consider all those people to be my family. That's how amazing the relationship has been. So yeah, I do the soundtrack for a show called Camp. It's very popular. It's like South Park but summer camp. So if you like adult raunchy humor and that's told through these little kids, watch Camp. I also did some songs on Genlock starring Michael B. Jordan, which is the mecha anime styled series that they do. That's also amazing and extremely dope. So give those two shows a look and you will hear Richie Branson music in those shows.
Taking over the TV and the internet.
Slowly but surely.
That's what's up. Is there a song from your new record you'd like to end with?
Let's go with Drift King, because that song is so... No. Let's go with Sex, Drugs, and Crunchyroll, because that song is so fun.
That's a great name. All right, we'll end with that. And yeah, check it out. And then follow Richie. Richie, thank you. This has been a really good episode. I appreciate you.
Oh, I'm glad, man. I know I talk a lot.
Sounds good. All right. And we'll talk to y'all later.
Peace
Bye.
out.
I just had a bad day. My girl say she got me. She gon' bring me Pocky. She gon' give me sloppy. She say she love all the ink on my fucking body. She told me she's a writer and I'm her Kawasaki. Started underground, now my vision starry. 2600 on my hoodie, that's Atari. My door's suicide, call that Harikari. Trying to trade my Maserati up for that Ferrari. I don't wanna do shit, I just wanna be high. All I do is smoke, fucking do drugs in my free time. Too much on my mind, haven't slept in 3 nights. No, I'm not okay, but one day I'm gonna be fine. No, I'm not alright, but I'ma be okay though. Said I'm not alright, but I'ma be okay though. I'm not at the top, but I think I'm on my way though. No, I'm not alright, but I'ma be okay though. I just blew an eighth, I can't feel my face. My brain on vacation, bitch, I'm on my Chevy Chase. I don't save these hoes, I don't have no cape. Watching hentai on Blu-ray, she gon' make it shake. She asked me what I'm doing, I say watching Yu Hakusho. Say she coming through, I say hold up, let me pause the show. I just smoked a lot of dro, where the fuck is my remote? Now she jumping on the pipe like it's Super Mario. I don't wanna do shit, I just wanna be high. All I do is smoke, fucking do drugs in my free time. Too much on my mind, haven't slept in 3 nights. No, I'm not okay, but one day I'm gonna be fine. No, I'm not alright, but I'ma be okay though. Said I'm not alright, but I'ma be okay though. I'm not at the top, but I think I'm on my way though. No, I'm not alright, but I'ma be okay though.
Richie Branson. That was tight. Thank you so much, buddy. Next week, we have an interview with Matt Fury, the inventor and creator of Pepe the Frog. Yeah, I got him on the show. He's a super nice guy, super humble guy. There's a new movie out called Feels Good Man about how the alt-right took Pepe and changed it and how Matt Fury worked to get him back. So I connected with Matt because I did a song. I touched on that on this interview about Boys Club, which was Matt Fury's original comic where Pepe is from. And we talk about that. We talk about fatherhood. We talk about his process. It's a great interview. Don't miss that. I mean, it was so cool to get him on the phone talking about the movie. So tune in next week. Thank you all for listening. Richie, thank you for your great interview. Stay safe. Wear the mask. Biden, Harris 2020. Yeah, I said it. Remember to vote. And that's what's up. I love you all. Thank you for your support. Okay, we'll see you next week. Peace.